Hey everybody, Big J, Anderson Mountain View Farms. Glad to see you all again today. We've got Lil on the camera, say hey.
Hi.
Got TB here with me.
Hi.
Okay, today we're going to be on part 3 of a 5-part series on the Big 5 obstacles in building an analytical mind for personal stewardship and professional success. So TB, what's going on today?
Well, today we're talking about graphing. Now, one example of graphing is, first of all, we had this log that we were making to track how many ounces we were getting. And then, after a while, we made this graph so that we could just look at it and tell whether it was getting higher or lower in the amount of ounces. But Big J, come talk about that.
Okay, thank you. So again, we mentioned this a few days ago, but of course their graph here. And what their logbook did initially is it graphed the date versus how much they got, which is the same thing as the domain and range, the input-output, the X and Y axis, right? So the first thing that we're going to talk about here is going to be the traditional Cartesian plane. That you think of the 4-quadrant graph. The 4 quadrants, right? We've got our X here and we've got our Y here. We'll be talking about the circle graph or what's called the pie chart here in just a bit. Those are the two big ones I want to focus on, okay? So the X and Y. Now, some people have trouble trying to remember, especially you start getting into algebra and they have names for this stuff. So you've got the domain and you've got the range, okay? And the domain is going to refer to the X and the Y, and then also you've got, we also refer to the input and the output. Now, one way to help remember this is that this is in alphabetical order. Domain, range, DR. Input, output, X, Y. So if you look at the letters correspond, DR, IO, and XY, they correspond. So if you're trying to think to yourself, which is domain and which one's range? Because I used to have trouble with that myself. But then I realized, hey, these are in order. So domain, range, XY, input, output, XY. And in their case, the input, or the domain, or which went on the x-axis, that ended up being the date, right? All the different dates. And then, of course, over here was the ounces. So the range, the output, the date versus the ounces. And in this particular episode on the graphing, the Cartesian plane, we just want to focus on just this quadrant. I mean, technically what? It goes around 1, 2, 3, 4 quadrants, but we're going to focus on quadrant 1. And the reason why is because most things that you'll encounter in life, your financial charts, anything like that, are going to be in the first quadrant, or any kind of comparison just like this. So let's look at another one here. Popular when it comes to, say, any kind of major financial chart, usually you'll see something like this, all right? You may have something like over here, you've got years, and then over here, you've got, we'll say price. And on the top, maybe it says something like silver. So you're looking at the silver cost. And over X number of years, and then you've got the different price fluctuations, you know, whatever it is, right? So in this case, the years is going to be, okay, your x-axis, right? X-axis, letter here, x-axis, your price, we're going to call it y. So domain, range, right? Easy to remember. It's x versus y, domain, range, input, years, and then the price. And it could be at any kind of increment, whatever that is, okay? So, now one good way to practice this, traditionally people will practice, or you've probably seen the little things where you got all these x, y coordinates. We're going to say 5, 2, okay? 2, 3, 4, 5, up to, and let's say you got something right here, and that's your coordinate, 5, 2. and you got a bunch of these, and you end up making some kind of little picture or whatever. But I want you to do something a little bit more involved than that. What I want you to do is to practice this, to really practice it. Instead of just trying to do those and just simply doing the dots, I want you to take apart one of these financial charts, and I want you to look at it, and every time you see a peak or valley or just other different points on it, and they'll be annotated. And sometimes you'll have something like this, which could be like a range or a threshold within, like, say, that whole year or something like that. This little thing, it's also used for margin of statistical error, that type of thing. This can be used for multiple different uses. This little bar here is to go back and plot it. What is the domain and what's the range? Go to each one and identify it. Instead of just doing the thing, which can be useful when you're much younger, that you end up doing something and it makes some, like, dinosaur or whatever. I want you to do something more difficult than that. I want you to go in, and when you look at these charts, find the domain and label it domain range, X, Y, input, output. Take this point here and write, okay, this is my coordinate, 5, 2. Or let's say if it was 2015, say that mark represented 2015, and the 2 represented, say, $20 or whatever. So 5, 2, and then I want you to put in here, you just simply domain range, X, Y, input, output, something like that, okay? And that's what I want you to do. And do a lot of these, hundreds of them. And then on the flip side, besides doing it that way, go back and make a chart yourself. Find some business venture, find something that you're interested in, any kind of subject. It could be athletics, it could be a professional job, it could be a trade, it could be something that you're trying to start yourself, anything like that. That's what I want you to do, is I want you to chart this, and I also want you to identify charts that are already in existence. Financial charts are great, athletic statistics, marketing statistics, anything like that. All right, so that's what I want you to hone in on. Now, the next thing I want to talk about that's very popular, that you tend to see a lot of, that's very useful. And of course, that is the circle graph. I've had my students in the past, when they did their business project, I thought it was very helpful. They got a lot out of it. They did an outstanding job, the amount of work that they put into this. So you got your circle graph, right? And I'm just going to kind of draw, just some pieces here. Now, the circle graph or the pie chart, they're displayed differently. But what you end up having is the whole thing adds up to 100%, right? The whole thing adds up to 100%. And let's say you've got a business and you've got $5,000 is your budget. So what you're going to do, what I had them do, and do this with a real project or maybe your budgeting, your monthly budget, whatever it is, and go in and let's say it's $5,000 a month. Maybe that's your monthly budget. It adds up to 100%. And you're going to add a bunch of different stuff in here. I'm going to draw this out and do something just to make this easy here. And I'm going to label this mortgage, for example. And let's say your mortgage, when you actually run the numbers, it ends up being $2,500. So what would that be, right? That would end up being 50%. So 50%. And the advantage of these circle graphs or the pie chart is that when you look at it, you get a good visual representation of, wow, when I crunch the numbers and I put this on the chart, which is again why we use circle graphs, the Cartesian plane, that kind of thing, it just gives us a very quick visual representation of what's going on, okay? So you've got something like this and you realize, wow, 50% of my monthly budget is all going to the house. Is there any way I can streamline that? Maybe it's to refinance my house. If it's my business and 50% is going to repairs, why is my stuff breaking down? Why am I have to put so much into it? Can I shave off 5%? If it's a house, maybe I've got too much house. By the way, the average person uses maybe 15 to 20%. That's not in current use in their house. 15 to 20%. that's unused. The other 80% is used. Maybe I've got too much out, so maybe I need to move so I can cut back, so I can put a little bit more time into other investments, other needs that I have, maybe so I can spend more time with my family, right? So you've got the Cartesian plane, and then you, of course, you got the circle graph. Also on this too, what I want you to do is I want you to practice. I want you to get out there. I want you to make a bunch of these. It could be monthly budget. It could be annual budget. It could be your budget for your business for a month, business for a year, whatever it is, whatever you're doing. If you're younger, maybe it's landscaping, maybe it's babysitting, maybe it's whatever, baking business. If you're older, just a larger scale of what I just said, depending on what you got going on. But everything can be used, this circle graph, sometimes again called a pie chart. It's labeled in different ways. Very useful, gives you a great representation of what's going on. So make a lot of these. Look at a bunch of them. They're all over the internet, obviously. Look at them, break them down, see what it is. Why is this business losing money? Why are they putting so much into this? Can they shave off of that? What's going on? Just like the Cartesian plane, analyze charts and then build charts. Same thing with this. Analyze, build. That's how you're going to get better at it. But you're going to have to spend a lot of time on it, and before you know it, you'll be a good graphing expert, at least initially on the first quadrant, because it doesn't deal with the negative numbers really, not too much. And also the circle graph. So again, quadrant 1, you don't have to deal with the negative numbers yet. Just try to master that, everything that we've done up so far. And then, of course, the circle graph. Now, glad you could be here with us today. Hope you've been enjoying this. Hope you've been able to get something about it. Please tell others, anybody else that you know that's struggling with math, having trouble building an analytical mind, whether they're young or old. And just please pass this on to them. I do offer math tutoring services. You can check me out, AndersonMountainViewFarms.com. Like us on Facebook, subscribe to our YouTube channel, and we'll see you next time.